Going on, everybody? It's Matt from Tabletop Mischief. Today we're going to take a look at tiny epic dungeons. So Tiny Epic Dungeons is a cooperative dungeon crawler. It takes place in two acts. You got Act 1 and Act 2. Act 1 is where you're going to be exploring the dungeon and fighting goblins and fighting, what do they call, minions. Rolling skill checks to see if you missed a trap, disarming traps. It's fun. And then the second act is when you kill enough minions and collect their hearts to open the boss lair. Then you go into the boss's room, and that's where it gets real. All right, let's talk about this torch track for a second. At the end of your turn, every turn, you're going to be moving this torch icon down this track. Boom, boom, boom. As you go move down the track, you're going to be activating enemies and you're going to be placing goblins. If you reach this skull icon and you haven't taken care of everything that you need to take care of, if you haven't gotten enough minion hearts or you haven't found the door to the dungeon, to the boss's lair, game's over. You lose. But if you're lucky enough to have done everything that you need to do, then you're gonna flip this over to Act 2. So Act 2 is when you find the door in the dungeon and you flip over the boss map and enter the boss's lair. That's where the big bad guy lives. When you enter the big bad guy's lair, you're gonna see these little icons at the bottom. Those are hero spaces. Those are where you as a hero can go. You're also gonna notice that their health track is way beefier than the minions that you've been fighting, and definitely way beefier than the goblins you've been just thrashing through. But I did want to point out that there's altar symbols on the health track for the boss, and that means once you hit that on the boss's health track, you can't go any further. You have to resolve that altar, which means you have to leave the room. So you have to go back up through the dungeon and find where the big bad guy has reappeared in the dungeon. So once you've taken care of the altar marks on a hero's health track, then he's fair game. He's wide open. You can just continually beat up on him until he is no more. That is the basics. That's an overview. You're gonna have spell cards that do different things, and you're gonna get cool items and legendary items throughout, but that's all stuff that you can find on your own. I'm not gonna get into exactly how you play this game. All right, so the people at Gamelynn Games are nice enough to send me a copy of the expansion for this game, and it's called Tiny Epic Dungeon Stories. There's actually 2 expansions in this box, along with 8 additional heroes and minis. So the Stories expansion is what I'm going to talk about first, and what Stories does is adds another objective, another quest, if you will, to the game that you have to fulfill before you defeat the boss, and it adds a bit to the game. It doesn't add a whole bunch of time to the game. I've noticed it just adds another little dimension to the game. It's nothing daunting or anything. It's like, I think the one that I did was like, I had to find a room. So once you find the room, boom, you've done it, and now you can move on and you can fulfill your destiny and you can defeat the boss. So the other expansion in this box is called the Epic Dungeon, and you're gonna explore and conquer 3 dungeon levels, fighting multiple bosses. I have not played this yet. It does look very interesting, and the new bad guys in here, the new bosses, look fantastic, by the way. So my first playthrough of this game was solo, and then I played it 2-player, and I found that the first playthrough we had to keep on referring. There's a lot of symbols, okay? There's a lot of symbols in here. I don't know how they would go around not having as many symbols, but on the first playthrough, found it very difficult to remember what did what and what this symbol was, what that symbol was. Forever going through and having to pull out this. There's a 2-page index of all the symbols in the rulebook, as well as a smaller version on the backs of the player mats. You're constantly having to look at that and look things up and match together to see what it does. And I thought that it was going to be a problem, but after about the second game or midway through the second game, I found myself having to look less. Like, I just started remembering things. So it's not that big a deal for me now. But that would be the only drawback to this game. The spell cards and the item cards, I feel, give you enough boost to get through and to do things you have to do. The skill checks on the dice, I feel like completely balanced. Like, if you don't use all your dice, you gain benefits. Like, that's pretty awesome. The +1s and +2s really help. Artwork in this game, it's a Gamelynn game. It's a tiny epic game. It's phenomenal. Little box. Even the inside of the box, like Gamelynn does, they make little dice trays. Even the expansion. The inside of the box for the expansion has a map on it. Like, it's crazy. The quality of the cards is top notch, like Gamelynn does. Like, that's just what they do. So let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room. The minis. Oh yes, there are minis in this tiny box. Now, they're not the size of D&D minis, but they're awesome. Being able to move a mini around a little tiny epic game, it feels good. Like, let's be honest, everybody loves a mini. Even the tokens, yeah. You have these little disarm tokens made out of wood. They're not cardboard chips. The minion and goblin icons are straight up wood meeples, or I don't know what you would call them because they're not people, but monster meeples. The wooden pieces, the altar symbols, wood. Everything else, there's no cardboard in here except for the cards. It's crazy. I have to, every time Gamelynn puts out a new game, I have to be like, I can't be like, my favorite Gamelynn game. Here's my top 3 Gamelynn games, because I love like 4 of them. Like, I love them. Like, and now when they have Vikings coming out, I'm gonna have to up my list again. Once you get past the first play and you're dealing with the symbols, this game is so worth it. And for such a small box, hours of play. The replayability on here is ridiculous. There's, in the base game, 8 heroes, so many bad guys. Like, the replayability is just out of this world. And then you got the stories expansion, which just makes it that much more replayable. 2 thumbs up from this guy. So I want to thank Gamelynn Games for sending this expansion and for putting out such an awesome game. I thoroughly enjoy it and cannot wait to play more of it. Also want to thank you for watching this. I hope you got something out of it. And until next time, stay awesome.